Jake Mallory was used to bad luck. A small-time cargo pilot from Earth, he never seemed to catch a break. His ship, the Dust Runner, was old, patched up, and always ready to fall apart at the worst moment. Today, Jake just wanted to refuel and get out fast. He landed on a bright, shining station at the edge of the Silesian expanse. The station looked quiet and empty, perfect for a quick stop. Jake thought this was just another refueling dock, a simple place to top off fuel and grab some supplies. What Jake did not know was that this was no ordinary station. It was the royal palace of the Zitherian Empire, home to Princess Cyrilia, one of the most powerful and respected leaders in the galaxy. As Jake stepped out of his ship, tired and hungry, he noticed strange decorations. Colors he had never seen before covered the walls, and soft music floated through the air. People in elegant robes moved quickly, whispering and watching him with wide eyes. Before Jake could figure out what was happening, loud drums began to beat. A deep voice announced something in a language Jake did not understand. Suddenly, dozens of Zitherian guards surrounded him, looking both confused and alert. "Where am I?" Jake asked nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. A tall guard stepped forward and said in perfect galactic common, "You have entered the royal palace during the most sacred ceremony in Zitherian history." Jake's eyes went wide. "Ceremony? I just want to refuel. I'm sorry if I'm in the wrong place." "Too late," another guard said, holding up a shimmering circle of light in the middle of the hall. "You have crossed into the royal call." Jake looked down and saw he was standing inside a glowing ring. A voice from speakers echoed around the hall. "Whoever stands in this circle during the royal call becomes the chosen match of Princess Cyrilia." Jake blinked. "Wait, what?" At that moment, a figure in bright blue robes appeared at the far end of the hall. It was Princess Cyrilia herself. She looked calm but powerful, her eyes scanning the room with cold intelligence. "Who is this human?" she asked, her voice steady. The guards looked at Jake and back at the princess. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Jake felt sweat on his forehead. He didn't know any of this. He only wanted a quick stop and maybe a bite to eat. Now he was part of something huge, something he didn't understand. Before he could say another word, the high priest stepped forward. "By ancient law, the marriage bond is sealed. The human standing in the circle is now the husband of Princess Cyrilia." The crowd gasped. Jake's jaw dropped. "What? I didn't agree to this. I'm just a pilot," Jake shouted. But the priests only nodded solemnly. This was no joke. The cameras above showed the event live across dozens of planets. Jake realized something. This was no ordinary stop. He had just walked into the biggest mistake, or the biggest adventure, of his life. Jake could hardly believe what had just happened. One moment, he was looking for fuel and snacks. The next, he was standing in a glowing circle, declared the husband of an alien princess. His mind raced. What did this mean? How could this be real? The palace hall buzzed with whispers and curious eyes. The crowd of Zitherians watched Jake like he was a strange animal they had never seen before. Their large, multi-fingered hands, shimmering skin, and tall, slender bodies made them look very different from humans. Princess Cyrilia stepped closer, her blue robes flowing behind her. Her sharp eyes studied Jake carefully. She looked serious, but Jake noticed a flicker of something else, maybe surprise or confusion. "You do not understand our customs, human," she said quietly. "But the law is clear. Whoever steps into the royal call circle during the wedding ceremony is bound to marry me." Jake ran a hand through his messy hair. "I didn't mean to. I swear, I thought this was a fuel station. I just landed by mistake." Cyrilia sighed. "The law does not care about mistakes. It cares about honor and tradition. My people expect this to be respected." Jake looked around, seeing the serious faces of the royal advisors and guards. There was no easy way out. He was stuck. The original groom, A tall and proud alien named High Lord Kavor stood to the side. His sharp eyes burned with anger. Kavor's body was covered in shining armor, and he looked like a warrior ready for battle. "How dare a human steal my bride?" Kavor growled. His voice was cold and threatening. Sarilaya held up her hand to stop him. "This is not about you alone anymore, Kavor. The law has chosen a new path." Jake swallowed hard. He didn't want to be part of any political game, but it was clear he had no choice. An elderly advisor stepped forward and explained to Jake what the royal call meant. "It is an ancient tradition. It seals alliances between families, planets, and empires. To break this bond is to risk war." Jake's heart pounded. He was just a small-time pilot from Earth. How could he be caught in a war between powerful alien empires? Sarilaya looked at him again, her voice softer now. "You must learn our ways quickly. Your actions affect not only me but the future of the Zetherian Empire." Jake nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do what I can, but I'm no prince or warrior." A young Zetherian woman named Lyra stepped forward with a small device. "We will teach you our customs and traditions. You must appear at the ceremony tonight and act as the princess's husband." Jake looked at her uncertainly, but knew he had to try. There was no turning back. As Jake was led away to prepare, he wondered what kind of trouble he had walked into. The galaxy was bigger, stranger, and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And now he was part of it all. Jake sat quietly in a small room deep inside the royal palace. His head was still spinning from the shocking news. He was legally married to Princess Sarilaya, a human from a small blue planet, married to an alien princess. By law, it was impossible to undo. A stern Zetherian advisor, named Memoril, paced the room. "Jake Mallory, you must understand something very important. Zetherian law is old and unbreakable. Once the royal call is made, the marriage is forever." Jake rubbed his temples. "But I didn't want this. I don't even know the princess. I was just trying to refuel." Merrill shook his head. "It does not matter. The law serves the people and the empire. If you break this bond, it will cause chaos, even war." Jake's mind raced. He had no idea the law was so serious. On Earth, marriage was a personal choice, not a political tool. But here, in the Zetherian Empire, marriage was a sacred promise that kept peace between powerful planets. Outside the room, the palace was buzzing with news. Reporters and cameras from dozens of star systems broadcasted the event live. Millions of eyes watched the unexpected marriage of a human and a Zetherian princess. Jake knew this made him important, but also very dangerous. The original groom, High Lord Kavor, was furious. He stormed the palace halls, demanding the marriage be cancelled. "This human is a trick. He is not worthy of the princess or the empire." Sarilaya, calm and strong, stood firm. "The law chose him. No one can change that. If you challenge this, you challenge the entire empire." Kavor's anger was clear, but he knew the law was not easily broken. His threat of war echoed through the palace like a storm warning. Jake realized he was now a pawn in a dangerous game of politics and power. That evening, Jake was introduced officially as the husband of Princess Sarilaya at a grand ceremony. The hall was filled with dignitaries, nobles, and alien leaders from many planets. Jake felt out of place in his simple clothes among the elegant gowns and shining armor, but he stood tall as the cameras focused on him. Sarilaya approached him and whispered, "Remember, you are not just a man from Earth now. You are the future of this empire's peace." Jake swallowed hard. "I'll do my best." The ceremony continued with ancient rituals Jake could barely understand. He saw the respect the people had for the tradition. It was clear the marriage was much more than a personal bond. It was a symbol of unity and hope. After the ceremony, Jake was taken to the royal training rooms. Here, he would learn Zetherian culture, language, and etiquette. He needed to become worthy of the title he had been given, not just for the princess, but for the galaxy. As Jake looked out a palace window, he thought about Earth, a tiny blue dot far away. He never expected to be a part of something so big, so important. And yet here he was, a human in an alien world, with a fate tied to a princess and an empire. Jake woke early in the royal palace, feeling completely out of place. His clothes were still simple Earth wear, a worn shirt and old pants, but he was about to meet the teachers who would prepare him to be the husband of Princess Cerelia. The first lesson was clear. Jake had to learn Zetherian customs fast. His teachers were a group of serious, tall aliens with smooth blue skin and bright, curious eyes. They spoke softly but firmly, explaining every detail of their culture. "Today, you will learn the greeting ritual," said Lyra, the young Zetherian woman who had helped him the day before. "You must bow in a special way and speak the words of respect." Jake tried to copy the bow, but his awkward movements made the instructor smile quietly. "Not bad for a human," Lyra said, encouraging him. Next came lessons in language. Zetherian words were hard to pronounce. The sounds rolled off their tongues like music, but to Jake, they were strange and confusing. "Repeat after me," Lyra said. "Cerelia, my light, my shield." Jake struggled, but after several tries, he got it close enough to make her nod. "Good. You are learning." The day passed quickly with lessons about royal etiquette. Jake had to learn how to eat with alien utensils, how to move with grace, and even how to wear the heavy royal robes without tripping. Then came the hardest challenge, the anti-gravity dance. In a large hall, soft music filled the air as the floor slowly lifted Jake a few inches off the ground. The dance required moving smoothly in the air, following the rhythm without falling. Jake stumbled again and again. He twisted awkwardly, bumping into invisible walls, and nearly knocked over a crystal vase. Princess Cerelia watched quietly from the side, arms crossed. For a moment, Jake worried she was disappointed. But then she smiled, a small, almost hidden smile. "You humans are stubborn," she said softly. "Maybe that is why you survived." That night, Jake sat alone in his small room, muscles tired and mind full. The palace was quiet, but the weight of his new life pressed down on him. He had to become more than a pilot. He had to become a partner worthy of a princess. As he stared out the window at the stars, Jake thought about Earth. The endless sky was beautiful, but here, among strangers and strange laws, he was lost. But somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark, a stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find a place in this vast galaxy. The next day would bring more lessons, more challenges, and more surprises, and Jake was ready to face them all. Jake sat in the royal garden, the soft light of Zetheria's twin moons casting long shadows over the strange, glowing plants. Princess Cerelia was beside him, her eyes staring far into the night sky. It was the first quiet moment they had shared since the wedding. Jake finally broke the silence. "Princess, why did you agree to the royal call if you didn't want to marry me?" Cerelia's lips curved in a small, tired smile. "I did not agree. It was a duty I could not refuse. My family, my people, expect me to follow tradition." Jake looked at her closely. "But you don't seem happy about this." She shook her head slowly. "I was meant to marry High Lord Kevor. It was a political alliance to protect our empire. But now, this changes everything." Jake swallowed. "Do you hate me?" Cerelia's eyes softened. "No, I do not hate you, but I am not ready to trust you either." Jake nodded. "That's fair. I'm a stranger in your world." For the first time, they talked honestly. Cerelia explained how she felt trapped by her role, expected to be a perfect princess, to sacrifice her dreams for peace. Jake shared stories of Earth, a place where people could choose their own path, where stubbornness was a strength, not a weakness. Cerelia laughed softly. "You humans are very strange." Jake grinned. "Maybe that's why I'm still here." The next days were hard. Jake tried to learn Zetherian customs, But the princess challenged him too. She refused to let him act like a weak pawn in the palace politics. One afternoon during a formal meeting with the royal council, Jake made a mistake. He spoke simply and honestly, saying that the empire should listen to all its people, not just nobles. The council gasped. Some scowled. But Saralea smiled at Jake, a look of respect in her eyes. "You speak like a true leader," she whispered. Their relationship began to change. Saralea stopped seeing Jake as just a human who ruined her wedding. She began to see him as a partner, someone who could stand beside her, challenge her, and maybe even change the empire together. One evening, Jake asked, "If you could choose, would you want this marriage?" Saralea looked at him thoughtfully. "I don't know yet, but maybe. I want to find out." Jake reached out and took her hand. "We'll learn together." For the first time since the wedding, hope grew between them. Two very different beings, forced together by law and chance, beginning a journey that neither expected, and neither could ignore. Jake never imagined his life would change so fast. Just weeks ago, he was a small-time pilot. Now he was married to an alien princess, learning to navigate a whole new world. But nothing could prepare him for what happened on the moons of Varel. The royal ship landed quietly on one of Varel's many moons. The place was strange. Rocky ground covered with purple moss, and tall, thin trees that shimmered under the pale sun. Jake and Princess Saralea were here on a diplomatic tour, meeting local leaders and showing the strength of the Zitherian Empire. The trip was meant to be peaceful, a chance to build trust. But peace was not what they found. As Jake walked beside Saralea through a crowded market square, he noticed a shadow move quickly behind them. Something didn't feel right. Before he could react, a sharp blade flashed in the air, aimed straight at Saralea. Jake's training kicked in. He grabbed her just in time and pushed her away. The attacker's arm sliced through the air, but Jake caught the wrist and twisted hard. The blade clattered to the ground. The crowd gasped. Guards rushed forward, surrounding the attacker, a stranger in dark clothes with angry eyes. Saralea looked at Jake with surprise. "You saved my life." Jake shrugged, feeling his heart race. "I'm not the perfect husband yet, but I'm learning." The attacker's plan was clear: kill the princess and start a war. But Jake's quick thinking stopped it. That night, in the palace, Saralea and Jake met with her closest advisors. They learned the attack was ordered by a secret group who wanted to weaken the empire by causing chaos. Jake felt the weight of his new role. He was no longer just a visitor or a mistake. He was a protector. Saralea looked at him with respect. "You have shown courage and loyalty. Jake, I am glad you are by my side." Jake smiled. "I want to be more than a husband in name. I want to help protect you and your people." Together, they started planning how to find the attackers and stop them before more damage was done. Jake's earth instincts and Saralea's royal knowledge made a strong team. They talked late into the night, sharing ideas and strategies. For the first time, Jake felt like he belonged here. Not because of the law or accident, but because he was needed. As they prepared for the next challenge, Jake looked at Saralea and said quietly, "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Saralea nodded. Together. The moons of Varel had tested them. But it was only the beginning. Jake never imagined his life would change so fast. Just weeks ago, he was a small-time pilot. Now he was married to an alien princess, learning to navigate a whole new world. But nothing could prepare him for what happened on the moons of Varel. The royal ship landed quietly on one of Varel's many moons. The place was strange. Rocky ground covered with purple moss, and tall, thin trees that shimmered under the pale sun. Jake and Princess Saralea were here on a diplomatic tour, meeting local leaders and showing the strength of the Zitherian Empire. The trip was meant to be peaceful, a chance to build trust. But peace was not what they found. As Jake walked beside Saralea through a crowded market square, he noticed a shadow move quickly behind them. Something didn't feel right. Before he could react, a sharp blade flashed in the air, aimed straight at Cerelia. Jake's training kicked in. He grabbed her just in time and pushed her away. The attacker's arm sliced through the air, but Jake caught the wrist and twisted hard. The blade clattered to the ground. The crowd gasped. Guards rushed forward, surrounding the attacker, a stranger in dark clothes with angry eyes. Cerelia looked at Jake with surprise. "You saved my life." Jake shrugged, feeling his heart race. "I'm not the perfect husband yet, but I'm learning." The attacker's plan was clear: kill the princess and start a war. But Jake's quick thinking stopped it. That night, in the palace, Cerelia and Jake met with her closest advisors. They learned the attack was ordered by a secret group who wanted to weaken the empire by causing chaos. Jake felt the weight of his new role. He was no longer just a visitor or a mistake. He was a protector. Cerelia looked at him with respect. "You have shown courage and loyalty, Jake. I am glad you are by my side." Jake smiled. "I want to be more than a husband in name. I want to help protect you and your people." Together, they started planning how to find the attackers and stop them before more damage was done. Jake's earth instincts and Cerelia's royal knowledge made a strong team. They talked late into the night, sharing ideas and strategies. For the first time, Jake felt like he belonged here. Not because of the law or accident, but because he was needed. As they prepared for the next challenge, Jake looked at Cerelia and said quietly, "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Cerelia nodded. Together. The moons of Varel had tested them, but it was only the beginning. The next morning, Jake woke to a soft light filling his room. The crystal walls of the royal palace reflected the rising sun in thousands of tiny rainbows. It was beautiful, but Jake felt a storm inside him. The attack on the moons of Varel had shaken him deeply. He was no longer sure who he could trust. Cerelia stood by the window, her face calm but thoughtful. "We must find out who wants to harm the empire," she said. "And why?" Jake nodded, determined. "We need answers." Together, they went to the palace's ancient archives, a vast room filled with glowing crystals that held memories from centuries ago. The archives were protected by Zetherian technology and magic, only accessible to the royal family. As they walked through the corridors, Cerelia explained the history. "Our empire was built on alliances and trust, but some secrets have been buried, hidden from even the royal family." Jake's curiosity grew. "What kind of secrets?" Cerelia hesitated. "Old enemies, lost wars, betrayals that could still affect us." In the deepest part of the archives, they found a hidden chamber. The walls glowed with images, holograms of battles, faces of ancient rulers, and symbols of secret groups. Suddenly, a crystal flickered and showed a shadowy figure giving orders. The voice was distorted but clear. "Destroy the princess. Break the empire." Jake's eyes widened. This group has been planning this for a long time. Cerelia looked grim. "They are called the Shadow Veil. They want to bring chaos and take power for themselves." Jake clenched his fists. "Then we have to stop them." As they studied more, they found maps showing secret bases hidden on remote planets. The Shadow Veil was bigger and more dangerous than anyone had known. Cerelia turned to Jake. "You must come with me to one of these planets. We need to act fast." Jake felt the weight of the mission, but nodded. "I'm ready." Before they left, Cerelia gave Jake a small, glowing pendant. "This is a Zetherian token of trust. It will protect you and remind you that you are not alone." Jake touched the pendant, feeling a warm energy spread through his hand. As their ship prepared to leave, Jake looked at Cerelia. "We're in this together, right?" She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Together. The adventure was far from over. The secrets beneath the Crystal Palace had opened a new chapter in their story, one of danger, trust, and the fight for the Empire's future. Jake and Princess Cerelia's ship glided silently through space, heading toward a small, mysterious planet called Syra. The stars twinkled outside the window, but inside the ship, tension filled the air. Saralea studied the maps and data carefully. Syra is where the Shadow Veil has one of their secret bases, she explained. It is a dangerous place. Few who enter ever return. Jake looked out the window, feeling both nervous and determined. We have to stop them before they hurt anyone else. As the ship entered Syra's atmosphere, the landscape came into view. Dark mountains rose high, covered in thick, twisted forests. The sky was always gray, with thick clouds hiding the sun. Landing in a hidden valley, Jake and Saralea moved carefully, watching for traps. They knew the Shadow Veil would not be easy to find. Suddenly, they heard voices, harsh, angry voices echoing through the trees. Jake grabbed Saralea's hand. They're close. Hiding behind large rocks, they saw guards wearing black armor patrolling the area. The guards carried strange weapons that glowed with blue light. Saralea whispered, "We must be careful. If they catch us, it will mean disaster." Using her knowledge of the land, Saralea led Jake through secret paths and tunnels. They moved silently, avoiding patrols and traps. As they reached the heart of the base, Jake saw strange machines and glowing crystals powering the Shadow Veil's weapons. "This is worse than I thought," Jake said, his voice low. "They're building weapons that could destroy entire planets." Saralea nodded grimly. "We have to stop them." Suddenly, alarms blared. A guard spotted them. "Run!" Saralea shouted. Jake and Saralea sprinted through twisting corridors, dodging blasts of energy. The ship was their only hope to escape. Breathing hard, they made it back to the ship just as guards closed in. Jake started the engines, and the ship lifted off, dodging laser fire. As they escaped into space, Saralea looked at Jake with a new respect. "You were brave today," she said softly. Jake smiled, feeling proud but also aware that the fight was far from over. "This is just the beginning," he said. Together, they headed back to the palace, ready to prepare for the challenges ahead. Back at the royal palace, Jake and Princess Saralea were greeted as heroes. The news of their mission on Syra spread quickly, and many celebrated their bravery. But behind the bright lights and cheers, dark shadows lurked. In the grand hall, Saralea met with her advisors. "The Shadow Veil is growing stronger," she warned. "We must act fast to protect our empire." Jake listened carefully but felt uneasy. He noticed a few advisors watching him with cold, suspicious eyes. Something was wrong. Later that night, Jake sat alone in his room, thinking about everything. He knew that in the palace, trust was rare. People wore masks, hiding their true feelings. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. Lyra, the young Zitherian woman who had helped him learn customs, stepped inside quietly. "I think you should be careful," she whispered. "Not everyone here wants the marriage to succeed." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" "There are those who believe a human husband weakens the empire. They want Saralea to marry someone from Zitherian nobility. Someone stronger, someone they can control." Jake felt a cold chill run down his spine. "Do you know who they are?" Lyra shook her head. "No names yet, but you must watch your back." The next day, Jake tried to focus on his duties, but whispers followed him wherever he went. He noticed doors closing when he approached, and conversations stopping suddenly. Saralea saw his discomfort. "I will stand with you," she promised. "Together, we will face any threats." But Jake knew it was not that simple. The palace was a web of politics and power, and one wrong move could destroy everything. One evening, during a private meeting, Jake overheard a conversation between two advisors. They spoke in hushed tones about a plan to remove him from the palace, by force if needed. Jake's heart pounded. He had to warn Saralea. Rushing to her chambers, he found her waiting, calm but ready. "We are not alone in this fight," she said firmly, "but we will not let fear divide us." Together, They prepared to face the coming storm. Allies were found in unexpected places, loyal guards, wise elders, even some nobles who believed in change. Jake realized that trust was fragile, but with Sir Elia by his side, he could be stronger than any enemy. The royal wedding that had started by accident was now a symbol of hope, courage, and the fight for a better future.